Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Melo Medisco. We have another awesome guest today, Carolina. She's a social media marketer, so I'm really excited to learn more about her story. So, with that being said, Carolina, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, no problem. I'm so honored. So, let's start with the first question of how did you get started? Like, what were those events or experiences that kind of led you to becoming a social media marketer?
Yeah. Back in 2020, in the middle of COVID, I feel like a lot of stories start
Yeah.
nowadays. Like back with COVID, I was a flight attendant.
Mm-hmm.
So I had dreamed of being a flight attendant since I can remember, since I was so small because, or so like so young because my
Mm-hmm.
mom was also a flight attendant growing up. So I would watch her, and it was just always like a big dream for me. And then right before COVID in 2019, the process of becoming a flight attendant can take months to, I think,
Mm-hmm.
up to 6 months from when I
Oh,
interviewed
wow.
and actually became a flight attendant, and then the training process and so forth. So by the time I started flying was the end of 2019, and then COVID hit, started kind of, gradually coming out there January, come February, and then March is really, I think, when things started shutting down. But I had just started getting comfortable with my
Mm-hmm.
job in March. And so when everything shut down, that included restaurants and airports, that included, flights, that included us just not getting called in,
Mm-hmm.
rarely ever. And then that also included when I would go fly, I would probably be isolated for a good 24 hours before I could even see a family member.
Oh, wow.
Or even if I was, on a trip, I wouldn't go anywhere. I would just sit in my hotel room because I was scared of going outside. So it was a really weird and interesting experience I had during that time. Fast forward to that summer. At that point, it was still, everything was still so fresh, and it was completely unknown on when things were going to be done or when things were going to get better. And I think I was holding on to that hope of, okay, things might get better. But by summer, I was just already burnt out, and I was exhausted, and I was missing my family. I was also living part-time in LA, and I'm from Eugene, Oregon. So I was living part-time in LA, and it just was it was so weird. It was just having to commute from, like, normal people commute 20 minutes, half an hour, or maybe max an hour to their location. I was commuting like 6 hours or 4 hours and on a plane ride.
Wow.
So by then I basically was like, I need to do something different. I need to just, yeah, I need to look for something else that's gonna be better for my mental health, be better for my life in general. I found out about a virtual assistant that really changed the things for me. Jessica Hawks, she went viral during that time about a virtual assistant job, and she kind of talked about how she made X amount of money in a month or in 4 months. And I love this business side of things, but I also had admin experience. So it seemed like I could do that. It seemed like things in my past I could apply to being a virtual assistant. You'd work remote. And I basically jumped in. I'm the type of person that likes to jump head first. I rarely think about it, and that too with, being a content creator, I have to jump into the idea and do it right then and there, or else I won't do it, or it'll be 2 weeks before I actually post something. So within like 2 week time frame, I had a call with Jessica. I had created my Instagram for the business. I had put together my packages, and then I had my first call with my potential client, and it happened so fast. So basically, I was just doing two jobs, which I was very used to doing growing up. I would always like at least work two jobs. So I was doing flight attendant and then also doing virtual assistant on the side from, I would say, end of summer through December. And then it became to the point where I was booked out with my clients, and
Wow.
what I was making as a virtual assistant replaced my income of being a flight attendant. And I was like, I want to do this full time. So
That's
that's how I started in that area. Over the years, I've evolved to social media management and social media marketing strategist, what I call myself now. So I don't do VA stuff anymore. I just do social media management and social media marketing. But that's kind of the gist.
and how long did you do the virtual assistant before
Yeah,
and then pivoting into social media manager or like
I would
strategist?
say it was a good year. I would say
A
definitely
year.
I did virtual assistant for a whole year before I decided to pivot to just social media marketing. And the biggest reason for my pivot was not only did I fell in love with social media, I fell in love with the marketing side of things. I
Mm-hmm.
found that my strengths were really in keeping up with the algorithm, creating content, kind of big picture, rather than just doing admin tasks. And what's so funny about this is like I said, I had administration experience. I had been a receptionist. I was front desk at a salon and spa for about 7 years. I just did a lot of, I was also a manager at the salon for a little bit. So my idea initially was, okay, I'll do admin because I'm good at it, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
familiar with it. Not necessarily I'll do admin and I'll do virtual assistant because I love it. So for me, at first it was like, I'm good at this. I'll do, I'll continue, take those skill sets and put it into virtual assistant. When after a year, when I realized that my love for what I was doing was really based off of social media and marketing,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I pivoted to like, okay, I don't have to be doing things just from what I'm good at. I can actually evolve and focus on what I love to do versus things that I don't love to do. So,
That's so interesting because there's like two things. There's like a question I want to ask, but also like point out where I have this like membership where they talk about strengths and how there's like
mhm,
four, it's like a quadrant, and like the big one is like the zone of genius or something like that.
mhm,
And like if you find what your zone of genius is, which for you is like social media and all of that, then that's where you are able to make the most money.
mhm,
But for you, when pivoting, I know it's like very hard for a lot of people because
mhm.
it's like I'm doing this and then like having to do something else where what if my clients aren't into this or stuff like that. So for you, how was that pivot and was it like scary to do or were you able to like say like I'm doing this and that's it?
Yeah, so kind of going back to that mindset that I'm like, I have to do it in that moment, or else I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to wait
Mm,
to do it. I was scared that I was going to either limit myself or not as many clients would inquire me, of course, or that it was just going to be really hard for people to find me in general, because by then I had already built this community on my Instagram. That's where I was getting all of my clients is through
mm,
Instagram. And because back in 2020, TikTok had just started out, but it wasn't really focused on business.
mm,
It was really just, more of a creative, fun app. So by then, I was really just focusing on Instagram and getting clients there. So that was a little scary. But then when I made that shift after like a week, honestly, or a week, 2 weeks, I felt a breath of fresh air. I really did. I felt like a big weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I knew it was right. I had actually ended some contracts that I was doing virtual assistants with,
mm.
and I was again, it was to the point where I was like, okay, I know I want to continue doing what I love to do, but there are some aspects in being a virtual assistant that I didn't love. And so
Mm.
I think that was kind of contradicting to what I really saw myself and how I saw my future with my business. So that, yeah, it was scary, but I knew it was the right, after like a week, 2 weeks, I knew it was the right decision to make. So,
Yeah, that's I was because literally I was watching a video maybe like yesterday or 2 days ago where
yeah.
she was talking about like your mission in life and like what your purpose in life is type of thing, and she was saying how you have to like feel it, but also that's gonna reflect on your bank account. So if you know you're doing the right thing if you're seeing it in your bank account. So I thought it was like pretty interesting.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, it really it's kind of a domino effect once you
Mhm.
make, and if you feel it in your gut. All of the decisions I made thus far, specifically with my business too, I base it off a gut intuition feeling. I'm
Mm.
really big on if it feels right or if it doesn't feel right, I won't go for it. But same with, Jessica Hawks, who was my mentor, I felt in my gut that she was the person that was going to that I could connect with her. And then what was amazing with that is after our time together, she saw my growth, she saw my success. So then, fast forward to 8 months later, I think, no, 8 months to a year later, I actually became a co-mentorship with her. I did
Mm.
co-coaching with her. So me and two other gals who had all done her mentorship program, a virtual assistant program, had become co-coaches. And then now I still work to her with this day. I do her Pinterest management.
Mm.
And so it's kind of just been a full circle of her mentoring me, but then now me working with her alongside of her. And it's really awesome to kind of see that. And then how I've taken that, all of my experience with that, and turn it into being a content creator. And this year is focusing on that, and not necessarily shifting, but like adding on to what I'm already doing, because I see from basically what this year has been for me. I know we're already in March, but like talking about the beginning of the year, it's being a content creator has really been a creative outlet for me because I do love social media so much, and I
Mm.
so business focused for me. When I started doing TikTok for myself and just, my own freedom, my personality, just being myself, that really became a creative outlet for me. And so I was able to get best of both worlds, I would say.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because I found you through TikTok thinking you were like a fashion creator or like a lifestyle creator. But then it was after I clicked in your link where you had social media manager, and then I listened to your podcast episode where you were like, oh, I have a virtual assistant business, and then like, so I was
I know.
like, wait, hold up.
So many
What is this? So yeah,
your
so that was
title.
pretty that
Yeah,
was pretty interesting.
that's basically how kind of it's evolved. So I still do my social media marketing business. I still have that. I have my clients,
Mm.
and that's my job. It's my full-time job. But now I also do content creation, and that's just me and my personality, and nothing to do with business, all to do with fun, lifestyle, beauty, makeup. I'm sorry, beauty, fashion, just all things that I love to do and bringing it onto the social media platform. But being a social media marketer, I'm able to take some of my tips and tricks that I've used with my clients and do it with myself. And it's been really fun to do that on TikTok. And
That's awesome. I actually want to go with the going back to the um your social media strategies like
yeah,
business of like when you started or even like your virtual assistant business, like when you started, were there any like limiting beliefs that you saw or like that were kind of like holding you back? Because I know you mentioned how you tend to execute quick, but like even like after that, because I know for me my podcast I still have like those limiting beliefs of like, oh, you should be doing this and stuff. So for
mhm,
you, what were those beliefs that kind of like were telling like, oh no, don't do this? And
yeah,
how were you able to overcome them too?
yeah, those were big ones. Those are such big ones. I think for anybody trying to venture into something new, but specifically in social media, or even with a title or with a job that no one's ever heard of, or people are like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
Um, it honestly, for me, I had to completely put on my blinders and just not look at even because I started my own account on Instagram specifically for business. So I didn't even focus on my personal page. I
Mm.
didn't post on that about what I was doing. I just basically put my blinders up, and it was like no other thoughts allowed in my head, because I know those thoughts will completely block me from moving forward or making that first post or getting on my Instagram stories and talking about what I want to talk about, regarding my business and starting things up. So it was very much going into this mindset of, one, I am the only one that's going to make myself move forward into XYZ and
Hmm.
build this path for me. Two, if other people that I know are probably watching and judging, what does that matter? Like, who really cares? Like, I could care, but I was at the point where it's like I was so motivated to just focus on my mental health and focus on building something that I needed to do for myself, that I was like, I can't let other people's thoughts. I can't get buried in other people's thoughts.
Mm.
Um, And then three, I had a great support system with my husband. At that time he was my fiance. And my mom was also very supportive. At first, my family was very much like, wait, what are you doing? What is that? And they didn't ask too many questions. They were just like, okay, Carolina, just doing her free spirit thing that she normally does. Um, and because also I had the security of my flight attendant job, they were just kind of like, oh, maybe it's a temporary
Mm,
she's doing. So they mainly focused on that. Um, but after, because I again went very fast and put a lot of effort and work into building that business, after a month time span, I had two clients. And after I got, it was like after the first client, people were like, "Oh wait, what are you doing again?" Like they were actually intrigued, and my family was like, "Wait, that's really cool." And then
mm,
fast forward 3 months later, 4 months later, when I announced that I'm not gonna be a flight attendant anymore and I'm gonna take this full time, we're like, "This is awesome! Like this is really cool." And that was really big for me and getting my family support. I know that's not the same with everybody. It can be really, really hard to have a support system or help people in your community and group understand like what it is you're doing, but at the end of the day, you're the only one that gets to make the decisions for yourself and
mhm.
create that life that you want to live. And you're also the only one that's creating that financially, that sustainability and moving forward. So that's what it came down to, and just came down to mindset, a lot of mindset, and yeah,
Yeah.
groundwork.
Yeah, have you is there like any specific resources that you use? Because I know like limiting beliefs or like becoming aware of them. Oh, actually, let's go with that. How did you become aware of those like beliefs that you had about yourself that were limiting you? And then
Yeah,
what resources did you use?
yeah. I'm actually a really big podcast person. I
Same.
love podcasts. It's what I find is we all have, of course, different ways to intake information, different ways to learn things. So some people are more visual learners, some people are more need to do it. Some
Mm,
people need to write it down. Some people need to read it. As much as I wanted to be a reader, I couldn't. I want to read. I'm like saving me forever to read one book that I started at the beginning of the year. I'm just not a reader, and I want to be. But get me an audiobook and I'll finish that within a couple weeks. Get me a podcast and I'll listen to like three a day. I'm very much an audio person. So at that time in 2021, I had also, decided to shift and look into this new venture. I was also doing some kind of self work already. Uh,
mm,
I had been struggling with COVID. I think many of us started struggling with our mental health, and then by just November I started I no actually sorry by around August, around the time I decided to switch it up, I started going to my doctor more and I started doing some more therapy.
mm,
And I had been diagnosed with depression and anxiety for quite some time now. However, it was not until then that I decided that I was going to do medication. Not that I was against medication, I was just scared for the longest time. And but at that point, I was at the point where it's like I'll take anything, like I'll make anything work
mm,
because I was just not in a good mental health mindset. So medication helped for me specifically in getting my mind right and getting myself grounded. But then again, doing these practices like podcasts. But what it came down to, I think I kind of learned the hard way. It's just like I was very down on myself. I was depressed. I had anxiety. And I got to a point where I was like, I'm like crying and that like feeling where like I can explain this way where you like feel like you have a frog in your throat, you feel like you're
mm.
kind of like you're like basically like underwater kind of feeling like you're about to
Yeah.
like that's what I had felt constantly throughout those months. And and that was kind of my self-aware moment where like I need to make these changes for
Mm,
myself because I'm the only one that's going to make them. And as much as support as my therapist can give me and my husband and podcast and all these other resources, it's really up to me to make those changes. So that shift in my mindset, along with the support of all the tools that I was using, I feel like really, really helped me just get through it all.
Yeah, I think that's really important. For me, I listen to a bunch of podcasts. Do you have a specific podcast that you listen to?
Oh my gosh, Brene Brown,
Brene
anything
Brown.
she does. So it's Unlocking Us.
Mm,
Like two podcasts, but Unlocking Us, she interviews a bunch of different, uh, not even like celebrities, but a bunch of different therapists, a bunch of different people that do groundbreaking work, and
mm,
she herself is like this world-renowned therapist. Like she's amazing.
mm,
And her podcasts are always like, I after I listen to an episode, I'm like, my mind is blown. And then I also listened at that time to Oprah's Super Soul podcast.
mm,
She doesn't, I don't know if it's like I don't think she comes out with new episodes anymore, but it was very active at that time. She had always come out with different episodes.
mm,
So I did Oprah, Super Soul, and then Brene Brown, Unlocking Us. Those are, I think, my two go-tos for sure.
I actually haven't listened to them. Mostly I listen to Jay Shetty, Los House, and then some Spanish ones. I listen to Se Regalan Dudas,
Okay.
De Todo Mucho,
Hmm.
Fred Broca, like, stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'll listen to some of them.
Yeah. I also like a lot of NPR because NPR has some good
NPR.
spots, and yeah, they have NPR has really good Spanish ones and other just like general
Mm,
news ones, but are good for you. But yeah, I love podcasts. I think.
same, same. Um, I think like the story, like with personal development, is like important to know, just because many of us like believe who want to start something. Usually, we have a lot of constant like for me, it's like a bunch of like sadness or beliefs of I don't deserve it and stuff like that. And then being able to like hear your story and then like others stories, it kind of like motivates other people to know that they can do it, that they can start something.
Yeah.
Um, but for you, when you started that, there's also it's not only also working on our mindset but also the skills that we have. So for you, when you started all of this, I know you
Yeah.
mentioned you had admin work and then you had like
Yeah.
business management, all of that. So what were other skills that you kind of had to learn when you started your virtual assistant business?
Oh my gosh. It is a testing experience becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a business owner. There are so many times where I not only was like, I don't know what I'm doing because this is new. And
Mm,
honestly, when I first started, I didn't even look at it as entrepreneurship. I just looked at it as like a new job.
mm,
Realized in the beginning that I was actually becoming a business owner. That's what you are doing. You're becoming a business owner. You're filing your LLC. You're building your taxes. You're doing your taxes. You're marketing yourself. You're doing the client's work. You're managing your expenses. So it was a pretty overwhelming experience at first. And
mm,
by no means is it linear. And I don't think it's meant to be linear, being an entrepreneur or being a business owner. It's meant to go in waves. So there was a lot of ups and there was a lot of downs, and there was a lot of learning experiences, especially trying to balance that, trying to balance that work life, personal life, trying to balance all your client works and getting things done on time. And there were times where I would either be late on something or I would do something wrong.
mm,
And in that very beginning time frame, really within that first year, it's hard not to take things personally because you're doing everything on your own. It's so hard not to be like, oh my God, I'm the worst. Like I just negative self-talk. And
mm,
that was really, really big in the beginning. Just you're going through all these different experiences for the first time, and it can be a toll. Like it can just be very heavy on yourself. And but essentially every experience, one, I was very, very, very big on open communication and
mm,
with my clients. So I was very big on, I love all feedback. I love positive, I love negative feedback or constructive. criticism, constructive feedback. Like I need to know. So I was very big on that. And wanting to hear the yes, wanting to hear the no. And I think that really helped me. But then also, there would be times where I had to realize that you're not going to satisfy every client. You're not going to do an A+ job in every single thing you do, especially in your first year. Honestly, first 2 years, you're not going to be perfect at everything you do. And that is okay. You are a human, you're not a robot. And if it's your first time starting out, especially if it's your first time starting out, you're going to make mistakes. So there was basically this big thing of, okay, once you make those mistakes, what are you going to do to learn from them? How are you not going to make them the next time? Or if you do make them the next time, you just really try to identify each scenario that went wrong. Like, what is it you did wrong? What happened? Was it, what did you prioritize at that time? Was it a timely manner thing? Was it, like, I remember like with one client, my weakness is copyright. However, I was offering blogs, and I still offer blog management, which basically I just create a blog for a client. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say it's my weakness. I would say it wasn't my strength. So I could do it and I did it well, but it wasn't my strength. So I would have miss spellings every now and then. And I would go through that document or that blog like 2 or 3 times, and I would use Grammarly. I don't know if you've used Grammarly.
Yeah.
And I would go through that and it'd be like, okay, good. I sent it out. And then she would find some misspellings, and I would be like, oh my gosh, where is it coming from? Like, I swear I checked it. And it got very repetitive. So then basically what it came down to, like, my goal was like, okay, my goal is now going to be to hire out a copywriter, someone that specializes in copywriting. I want to add someone to my team that specializes to really elevate the experience for my clients. So that's what I did. I worked really hard and I set a budget aside so that way I could hire a copywriter. And then basically a year and a half later, I added a virtual assistant to my team, and then I added someone that specializes in copywriting, so I can do the big picture and I could still write up the draft, but then I have multiple eyes on that actual copy to really, deliver and give the best possible blog with no misspellings on the blog. So again, you really learn through the mistakes you made, and it's gonna go up and down. There's gonna be highs and lows, but just remind yourself that it's okay if it's not perfect, and it's okay that you can make mistakes.
Yeah, and I could definitely, what's the word, attest to that, because with my podcast episodes, the first 2 I didn't really know what I was doing just because it's the first 2, and then the third one, I was talking to her, and then towards the end, I just like completely forgot my thought. And for me, like, that's one of like my biggest fears, because I don't really have a bunch of conversations with people. So me starting a podcast is like, it's not like you could say my strength. So, but I want to talk to other people who have like these amazing stories. Yeah. So when I was doing the podcast, after it was done, I did not want to like see the episode because I have to edit that myself. So I was like, it probably took me like a day or 2 to actually like watch it and then edit it. But yeah, like those moments like really, like your mind like really like hits you hard, like, or like punishes you, you could say. But I really had to like learn like it's okay, like you're gonna make mistakes and all of that. So yeah, it's like really important to give yourself grace at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's very similar to kind of it's a confidence build, like, and especially if it's something that's out of your comfort zone and that's something that's new in the beginning, that means you're challenging yourself. So 1, awesome job, you're challenging yourself, you're getting yourself out of your comfort zone. 2, 6 months from now, 1 year from now, you're gonna look back and be like, oh my God, that was me. Like this is what I sounded like, and you're gonna sound different. You're gonna sound completely different than you did from when your first 10 episodes. And then you're going to look back and be like, I'm so happy I did that, even though I was uncomfortable, or even though I was, not at all perfect, or had no idea what I was doing. Because now, if I would have started now, it would have been the same thing. It's like, you got to do it now, or else you're going to look back and you're like, why did I do this then? Or it's totally kind of that mindset game. But that was another big thing, is confidence. My confidence was I mean, from someone that was so shy growing up, so shy. And I think that really stemmed from being an immigrant and or
Mm.
first generation and coming to the United States, not knowing anybody. I just had like a really had a traumatic childhood. I mean, who didn't? But also just it was a very it was yeah, it was a very interesting childhood. And so during my elementary school years and middle school years, I was so shy. And I took that into high school a little bit. High school, I bloomed a little bit more, but then that always stuck with me. So I never thought that I could get this confidence or have this confidence. I didn't know that was even in me. But once I started my business, once I became an entrepreneur and moved forward with that and had these like groundbreaking moments and had these learning experiences and worked with other clients, I realized like I need to be the person that leads. I need to be the person that speaks out. I need to set my boundaries. And you just build to this confidence one after the other. And I feel like has been my biggest takeaway and something that I have absolutely loved from this whole journey of being a business owner. I took that, especially taking that and going into content creation over this year. Like, I feel like if anything, that has been kind of the big seed is my confidence. Because if I had started a TikTok or content creation like a year ago or even 2 years ago, no. I'm like, how am I going to get in front of the camera and talk to people? Or like, what am I doing? Like, running the streets like this? No way. But now I'm like, I do not care. I'm like, I'm going to go
Yeah.
for
That's so awesome. I love like hearing these stories, like your story, everybody's story, because it's like we were this person a few years back,
it.
and
Yeah.
and we grew up like or transformed into a person that we would have never imagined. So
Yeah.
for me, I really have the same like similar story because I was labeled as a shy kid, a quiet kid. Like parent teacher conference comes, it's like, oh, your daughter has to speak more, blah blah blah, participate more, and even in high school too. It was until probably like sophomore year where it was like my friend I made friends because I didn't have friends for like freshman and sophomore year, and
Yeah.
then sophomore year second semester you could say I joined sports and that's where I started like getting out of my shell. But even after that, and then college came and then I had no friends again because my friends from high school didn't go to the same college, so
Starting all over.
I went back to being the shy kid and whatever. And then it's like it's been like a whole process of me trying to get out of my shell and all that. But now starting my podcast is like I would have never imagined me talking to awesome people like you, where it's like
Yeah.
you could see the transformation. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really awesome.
Yeah. I love that.
Okay, I have two. No, I have one question with the
Yeah.
hiring. How
Yeah.
was that experience for you? Because I know for many business owners or people who are starting their entrepreneurship, one of the difficult or hard difficult things to do is hire people. So for you, how was that? How was that process for you?
Yeah. On both sides, I mean, I guess on the side of people hiring me as,
Mm.
their social media manager or social media marketing strategist, um, I have definitely evolved over the past 2.5 years since when I started this at the very beginning. Like, I didn't have any proof to show of any social media management experience. I didn't have any proof to
Mm.
show of any blogs. So it was very much how I was going to captivate them at the initial call, which is called the discovery call.
Mm-hmm.
Once they inquire, we do a discovery call, which is about a 20-30 minute call of them telling me what it is they need help with, and then me kind of telling them, like, okay, this is how I can help you. This is what I recommend. This is how many hours a week I would recommend you hire me on for.
Mm.
And since, you send them the contract, you send them a proposal, and since you're doing freelancing, you can work with multiple businesses. But at the very beginning, it was very much relied on that discovery call. And
Mm.
I knew that every discovery call and every client was going to be like my biggest client yet, because every single client was going to be an experience of me getting better at whatever task that I was performing and me having that actual experience. Because to be honest, you could, like I said, you could have any experience in your job, and it will help you. Those skill sets will help you into, the becoming a virtual assistant or a social media manager. However, um, a lot of it you're going to learn as you go. A lot of it you're going to be watching YouTube videos, you're going to be doing some Google research, you're going to be, watching it and doing it at the same time. You're also going to be asking a lot of questions probably to your client. So it very much relied on that discovery call and how I would captivate them there, how we would connect, and and it's really about that trust building too. So once they sign the contract and sign the invoice, you build that trust, and you build that trust through communication, and you build that trust through the how you're what you're giving your all to your work and the tasks that you're doing. So that was really the big thing in the beginning. Over time, I was able to now build a portfolio. So now I have clients, and I've had many clients, and I have experience in social media management. I have client studies that I can share with them. I have past blogs that I can share with them. And that's kind of, I guess, replaces kind of that requirement, in a normal corporate job world.
Yeah.
You have your check boxes of requirements, and that would kind of replace that essentially. So the inquiry, I send them over a proposal, and in there has reviews. So once you have, a client, you make sure you build that trust. And if you're ending it with a client, you always make sure you get a review. And a lot too, what helped is me really trying to be active on my Instagram or whatever platform it is you're marketing yourself on. So at that time, because it was Instagram, I was really active on my stories, and I was really, really active on my Instagram stories. So I can kind of showcase my personality through that. And I had a lot of people connect with me like, oh my gosh, I saw you really be active on stories. I was also really just trying to be active on any platform that was new, because I knew I liked social media. So I don't know if I don't remember if you recall Clubhouse or are familiar with Clubhouse. It was an app,
No.
and it was kind of very similar to how podcasts, because it was basically you go live and you speak live in front of whoever decides to join at that time. It's not recorded, so it's like once you speak live, that
That's
kind of
it.
seminar ends. But you can be like, I'm going to host a Clubhouse on this day at this time. Join me, and we can talk about all the topics. And so I would host a lot of Clubhouse lives, and I remember, or I would try to join them. So if somebody else I knew was hosting, that I was either a potential client that I wanted to work with, or was in the industry, because I was really focused on wedding industry, they were hosting something, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go in there and ask questions and just be really positive, and getting myself out there. So that was really in the beginning. But again, later on, now I have like, okay, these are my clients that I've worked in the past. I my client's post has gotten 14 million views, 18 million views, so forth. Like, this is what I have to show. And then I've just really built my client experience, elevated my client experience with past years. I would say on the other side of me hiring somebody, because I'm familiar and was once in their shoes when either they first started their freelance journey. Um, I felt like I probably have, I can probably relate a little bit to what they're going through. And I'm very much someone that, if you work with me, like, I love to collaborate. So I love to share what I know. And so it was really just based off of gut intuition, whether I feel like this is going to be a right fit, and how the discovery call went, if I connect with them. And then also referrals. If somebody referred me to somebody that, hey, when I was needing a copywriter, I actually got that referred to me from someone who, one of the co-coaches from with Jessica's program, and she had used this copywriter. She had spoke highly of her, and I was like, I need that. I specifically need that. So I reached out to her, and we got on a call, and it went great. And so I based a lot of it on intuition. If I can feel, obviously you can't see that work ethic in the beginning, but you can really tell through a call if it's going to be a connection. And then because it's, freelance work, if it's like a month-to-month basis or like a
Mhm.
3-month contract, it's like, hey, we'll test this out, see how it goes. Um, but for me, it's not really about, and I think a lot of corporations or businesses are basing this off. It's not just about like what degree you got, or it's not even about what degree you got,
Mhm.
or what's on paper. It's about what you can put on, what how you're presenting, what your work ethic, how you're showcasing that, not like that you got a degree, specifically with like my field, social media management, I would say.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because I was reading this book called Quiet something 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 by Susan something, and and she was talking about how we live in this culture of personality. So that's where like we care what other people think about us. And she
Mhm.
was talking about in this chapter where um I think it was Harvard, like those like high Ivy colleges, where they see your resume and they want you to do like a lot of extracurricular activities. But she was saying how that's just us caring about what this institution specifically wants from us. So it's not supposed to be like that because not everybody wants to do all these extracurricular activities. Like someone was just wants to focus on doing something specifically and
Yeah.
expand their experience in that. So yeah, I thought like that was pretty interesting. I really recommend that book. I still need to finish it though, but the first few chapters is like it's a lot of information, good information.
If it's on audiobook, I'm on it.
Um, I think it's on YouTube actually. So I think, but the voice there is not that the best. So
Yeah,
definitely check Audible.
I love it.
Um, I was gonna ask you a question of we talked about hiring, and then I want to ask you a question about pricing,
Yeah,
because and that's another difficult thing where a lot of, especially like as beginners, entering entrepreneurship and all of that, we
yeah,
tend to price ourselves like very low. So for
yeah,
you, how was that experience, and how have you like
yeah,
increased your prices and all of that?
yeah. That kind of ties into that confidence
Yeah.
build and not double guessing yourself and questioning yourself, which I still do to this day, even 2.5 years
Mm.
later, because it'll be marked 3 years of doing this in end of August.
Wow.
So it's weird that it's already been this long, but also it also feels like it hasn't been that long. But I was very fortunate to again have that mentorship with Jessica. At the time that she went viral in the middle of August, she had been doing like one-on-one calls. And I think I was like one of her last one-on-one calls. That was like like the cheapest price possible because, because then she was like really high in demand and then she raised her prices, understandably. And so I had that call with her, and that was like one of the things I'm like, how do I price this all? What I do? Um, and she was like, you don't price yourself any lower than $25 an hour. It starts at about $30 an hour.
Mm.
And so don't price yourself. She's like, actually, don't price yourself less than $30 an hour, especially with the type of experience that you have. I was
Mm.
like, okay, okay, okay. And I said, okay. And then I priced myself at $25 an hour. Totally underpriced because I was so scared. I was so scared because by that time, being a flight attendant, I was getting paid $18 an hour, and prior to that, and that was my highest pay rate. And then prior
18.
to that, I was the jobs I'd had paid like $15 an hour at most. And that was normal. Like that was minimum wage or a
And
little
that's
bit
kind of
that was above a minimum wage.
And that's kind of what we're used to. I mean, at least in my family, my
Yeah,
cousin's the only one who's had like a $30 an hour
yeah,
like our minimum hour thing. So yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, very used to it. And that's one big thing is you get comfortable in not just what you're told, but like kind of what you're set up to be. So because you don't have this X, Y, and Z, because you don't have this degree, because you don't have this amount of experience, that you're not allowed to be priced at, you're not worth to be priced at $30 an hour. So
Hmm.
that was my mindset because that's what I was programmed in society to be.
Hmm.
And because I didn't have a bachelor's degree. And I remember getting $19 an hour as a flight attendant. I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I'm gonna get $30 an hour, and then I'm gonna get $40 an hour over the span of 15 years because that is the higher seniority, the higher the rate, but it's literally over like 15 years to get a higher wage. And this is specifically for regional, by the way, because I know when you're with the main airlines, they're priced higher, but regional
Mm.
is like starts at like $18 an hour. So so then basically I was like, okay, I'm gonna start myself at $25 an hour. And then I got my first client. My first two clients were at $25 an hour, and I priced myself that way. So then I was like, okay. So then after a couple months, I was like, or after I think like by the third client, that was like 2 months later, I was like, okay, I'm very comfortable at this. I see like I see the pricing myself to the workload I'm doing. So I'm gonna price myself at $30 an hour. And so then I did, and then I started becoming more confident in raising my prices, as not just as I was getting booked out, because it's not just like, oh, the more clients you get,
Mm.
the higher you go. It's about the experience, and it's about how you're delivering your work. It's about how you're setting your own for like your project management, how you're delivering your tasks. So it was based off many different things um, on top of the amount of inquiries you're getting and the amount of people that you're saying yes to. So there was different elements to how I was able to price myself, different reasons how I'm able to price myself higher. But then I got to the point where I was like, okay, now I'm going to price myself $50 an hour. And then I did, and I got my client. So I really built that up. And now I don't base it off that, because with social media management, it's really hard to base it off hourly rates. You do it
Mm.
packages, and you just do you don't even say the hours, you just give them like deliverables, and you give them like, this package includes like this many posts a month, and then this is what it
Mm.
costs a month or every 4 weeks. So that's kind of how it's uh, evolved into that. But at the very beginning, yeah, don't start at any 30, don't start at lower than $30 an hour, because like I did, because it's just not worth it.
Yeah, it's important like to kind of like be transparent. You could say with what you're earning, just because like you said, $25 is too little. Like at least 30, but if you can do more, if you feel
Yeah,
confident. So yeah, that's like really important. So now
yeah,
that we're talking about money, because money is like one of my favorite topics,
love
let's
it.
go with two how has your relationship with money evolved, like personally and then with your business too? Because managing limiting beliefs, all of that really influences on how you manage your money. So how is that
Yeah.
journey for you?
Yeah, it really changes your mindset and how you look about money when you start making more money. The way you start normalizing things, and like the um the number that you're hitting a month. One really big thing about that is, I don't know if it's still really continuous, but in the very beginning with the online space, there is like a really big focus on hitting six figures, or say hitting
Mm.
like getting 5 figure months, or hitting take 10K months. That was like the big thing. Like, you've made it if you hit 10K months. Realistically, that's not true. um, Great, if you hit 10K months, amazing. However, everyone's in a different position in how they can start their business. And just because you're not hitting taking months does not mean that you're not a successful business owner. Success can come in many different ways and forms. Success can come in you helping your client get X amount of deals, or X amount of inquiries. It can come in you now having the freedom to schedule yourself, a therapy appointment in the middle of the day, or take your dog on a walk and not be stressed out. Like, success can come in so many different ways, and you having that work-life balance. It does not just revolve around hitting 10K months. So that was something that I had to kind of unlearn over the time, because when you're in that online space and you're seeing that number, and you're, comparing yourself to other people and what they're making, it can definitely be a limited belief, and it can definitely hinder you from moving forward,
Mhm.
or just play with your mind a little bit, even though you're doing really great, but because you're not hitting 10K months, you're not doing amazing. So that was like one really big thing that I had to just really focus on and work on. Um, Over time, I'm so thankful. My husband loves numbers and is a big finance person. I am not a finance person by means like whatsoever. I have always struggled with getting my finances checked. Just full transparency here. I've always struggled. Um, you know, just budgeting and things like that. So being an entrepreneur and owning my own business really put my gears into check and had me do monthly budgets, or
Mhm.
sometimes even bi-weekly budgets. And because you're taking out, for example, from the very beginning, I've created the habit of taking 25 to 30% of every invoice that I got and putting that aside into savings called taxes. Because at the end of the year, or when you do your taxes, if you're getting, you have to pay a certain amount, or say you have to pay like $10,000 or how much ever taxes, then you're not like, what, where, how am I supposed to come up with this money? No. I created that habit. And that's really what it came down to with money, is creating habits and healthy habits that's going to help you just be at ease financially, and handle, your QuickBooks self-employed, and handle hiring on people, or say if you don't have a client 1 month, then what do
Mm.
you, but you expected to have a client, but they last minute were like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't work together, or I had something come up. That's okay. The good thing I have my savings in check, because that's going to replace that.
Mhm.
So I really, really, really helped me get into gears with creating just a bit of a healthier relationship with money, and just getting my finance checked. But again, I had my husband that really helped me figure that out, because he's such a numbers person. So he helped me figure out budgets and get some Excel worksheets going
Mm.
with that. Um, but that was also my big motivator in the beginning, is getting that quote unquote financial freedom. So that was my big motivator to also, when I had started in August, and I was like, okay, I want this amount of clients by December. What do I
Mm.
do? Or I'm sorry, I need to make this amount of money by December to be able to supplement my current income and more. What do I need to do to get there? Okay, I need to have this amount of clients each month, and I need to be making this amount. So I need to be working this amount of hours. I need to save this much money. I need to also put back money that I've already spent, because investing in coaching, investing in tools, and the things that you're learning is takes money. So I had spent, I think, like $3,000 something on coaching, and then I had spent a packet. I bought like a $30 how to do things packet. I
Mm.
invested in something else. I forgot, that was like $100. I was okay, before I pay myself, I'm going to put money back into that. From there, I'm going to, along with the 25-30%. So I really didn't pay myself for the first like half of the year.
Oh.
I focused on getting my finances checked, getting my savings, making sure I was supplementing what I was already making, putting together my taxes fund is what I called it, um, before I can be like, okay, now I can confidently leave my corporate job, so that way, if any, knowingly that is, say, next month I have a client that I'm not working with anymore unexpectedly, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be safe financially. I have grown up working like 2 to 3 jobs at the same time since I can remember. So I'm very comfortable in that kind of go, go, go
Hustle
energy.
mentality.
Yeah, that kind of hustle mentality. Um, it's a love and hate relationship, because you need to learn to slow down. It's not the healthiest thing to kind of be in that hustle mentality, but it did help me growing up. And again, I get a lot of my work ethic from my family members and my grandparents, and who immigrated here first, and then my mom, who was a single mom taking care of us 3 kids. And so um a lot of that kind of working multiple jobs at the same time, I was very comfortable with that. And so I feel like that also did help me get to the savings and the financial space that I wanted to by the time I had left my corporate job.
Mm.
Fast forward to now, um, I have my husband and I are very proud of, what we've built thus far. We have just moved into this house that we bought in August, and our first big investment was going to be our wedding, but because of COVID, we had to postpone the wedding, and it was actually
Mm.
very much a blessing in disguise because we took that money and invested it into a duplex.
Oh, wow.
And then that duplex, we lived on one side, rented out the other. We renovated the side that we were on, and now we just listed it for rent. So now
Mm.
we basically have 2 units that we're gonna get income from. And then this unit we have currently, our plan is to Airbnb this unit by the end of the year.
That's
So
awesome.
there's a lot of decisions, being made, and at the same time, you also want to have fun. Like I like to have fun and I like to shop.
How have you learned, because real estate investing is not like easy peasy, so what resources have you used to learn about real estate investing and not get stuck in that analysis paralysis?
Yeah, my husband was really always into, had always listened to some audiobooks and just are always been interested or intrigued by kind of the real estate space. And kind of the biggest motivator was, again, when we had saved up all this money for our wedding, and then it was 2021, and then because of COVID, we had to postpone our wedding.
Mm.
And so when we thought we were gonna get, like, we didn't realize we were gonna get a duplex at first. Like, hey, we're gonna get a house. Like, let's just get a house. We're gonna find a home that we want to live in. And then we're
Mm.
like, wait, what about a duplex? What about a duplex? Like, why don't we just do kind of an investment home? And I'm like, I'm down to do an investment home because I don't know if I want to live in Eugene forever.
Mm.
Um, and if we have the money and we can make it work, like, I would be down. It would be kind of weird to manage, but we were lucky to find the duplex that we did. And when we bought our house was literally like the month before the market had that really big
Mm.
spike in interest rates and homes like doubling their prices. Like it was, I don't know if it's luck or if it's timing, but it was like literally the month before. So then we signed the house, we got the duplex a month later. The real estate market just went crazy, and we're like, oh my gosh, like we we almost were in that mess of situation. But basically, what we had to do is we, saved up again for our wedding. We knew we had to, like, there's going to be a wedding, or it was going to be a year out anyway. So we're like, hey, we're going to save again. And then at the same time, we're going to renovate the house that we're living in. And my uncle is actually our real estate, yeah, was our real estate person. Why am I?
Agent?
Yeah, I forget English sometimes.
No, see.
He was a real estate agent, and so he kind of helped us to kind of guide us through the whole process.
Mm.
And he was like, "You guys are making the best possible decision, getting a duplex." So basically, it's kind of like I've never had tattoos, but I kind of phrase it or give the example of, like, when you get 1 to 2, you want to get. People are always like wanting to.
More.
Um, it's kind of like that. It's like once you get a house, you're like, oh my God,
You
I
can't
want to get
stop.
more.
Mm.
Yeah, especially if it's like a duplex kind of investment house, you're like, oh my God, I want to get more. And so we were pretty committed to, like, okay, let's set aside savings for the next house. And so we did that. And then 2 years later, we were able to buy our second home. So it's definitely podcast, some books, my uncle, and yeah, you kind of just get in like a black hole of learning a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah, that's like really, really important, especially with real estate. Where there's like sometimes there could be like there's so much information and so many ways you could do real estate investing. I know for us, my family was able to buy a house too in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So the first thing, our main thing was to buy a duplex so we could like kind of like house hack,
Yeah.
especially because we're also a big family. So it's either we house hack, one of us comes and lives here, or we one family comes and then we rent the other apartment. But yeah, that's definitely an important thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, how about your no, let's go with like limiting beliefs. Like what were during this journey, what were some specific limiting beliefs about money that you had that you realized you had and now you've like changed to like a more abundance mindset?
Yeah. I mean, kind of the biggest one was my worth, because of what I had, uh,
Mm.
the experience I had in the past, and because I had only gotten my associate's degree. And I just realized, I do love learning. I generally do love learning, but I
Mm.
just knew that school wasn't for me. So when I got my associates in business and then I decided not to move forward in finishing a bachelor's, I had 2 years left, and I was like,
Mm.
it's just, I can't do it. Like, I feel like I'm wasting money because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not putting any effort into it. And so I was very much in the mindset of like, oh my gosh, I'm not worth getting a bachelor's. I'm not worth getting paid a salary. I'd never gotten a
Mm.
salary. I'm not worth getting, benefits. And so, I had been used to for so long just being admin, being a receptionist. That's what I felt that I had, that was like my success, story, or I thought I had finished there. And I was good at it. It was great. But when I like very vividly remember sitting in, I was a receptionist at a med spa slash, um, eye doctor. It was like both. And my desk was basically like a cubicle, and it had no windows for me to get like see any windows. I had to just step outside and like look out the big all windows. But like my desk was just like in a corner, and it was cozy, but it was not for me. At that point is when I realized I was like dreading going to work. And
Mm.
then I was like waiting until my 15-minute break that I can get a sigh of relief. And I remember just leaving work and be like, I don't want to come here. I don't. I dread doing this every day. Like, I honestly, I want to quit. I want to quit. I said I wanted to quit like every single day. Like, I'm going to quit tomorrow. I'm going to quit tomorrow. I never did. And I even at that time had, because of the med spa, I had, like they would give us, discounts, and I would
Mm.
get like, uh facials for free or this for like $5, and none of that motivated me. Like, I was not even about any of that. So it's just about me not wanting to be in a cubicle. And that's when I realized like that 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job is just not for me.
Mm.
And and yeah, so that was kind of like the big determination of like, okay, if that's not for you and that's not for you, then what do you do to change it? And so for me, that's kind of like the big motivators. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really important, especially knowing your worth and trying to figure that out because I've mentioned this in like previous episodes where like money is energy. So it's like really important for you to feel like you deserve it because if
Mhm.
not, there was like another video where I watched where he says like treat money as if it was like an important person in your life. So if you say, oh, I don't deserve to be your friend, then the money is gonna be like, okay, bye, I'm gonna go somewhere else. So
Right.
it's really important to notice those things and say like, no, I do deserve it. Like money flows comes and flows to me, like all of those.
Yeah.
Do you have any affirmations that you use? Do you use
Well,
affirmations?
as an ask, does your family also have kind of that? I don't. I'm not gonna. You could call it an affirmation, but like where you don't put your purse on the floor, or else,
Mm.
or
Yes, the
else
money's not gonna come.
that
Yeah.
was, if you put your purse on the floor. So I never put my purse on the floor. Like, and my husband's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Not put my purse on the floor. I'm going to lose my money. It's going to be taken away from
Superstitions, yeah.
me." Yeah. So that's kind of like a similar thing to me is like, um, I very much try to, with money. And I tell my husband, I'm like, don't worry about it. It's gonna be okay. Like I'm very confident in
Mm-hmm.
what's to come, even though if I don't have it, or if it's not, if like say I have to pay something for next month and I don't have it by any means. I'm really big on manifestation, but I'm also very much on like what I put out there is coming back to me. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty much what
A manifestation.
um but I'm very much like it's okay. I'm not going to spend the time worrying about it. I'm going to be proactive in getting,
Mm-hmm.
needing what I need to do to get the money. And I'm not saying it's going to come out of thin air. However, I'm also not going to like stress or look at it in a negative way or think that for example right now we're getting a house. We just listed the other side of the duplex, and I understand like we are paying two mortgages. It's a big deal. um so my husband is a little more on the stress of like we need to get the house, like it's not going to get rented, like
Mm.
it's been out a week, what's going on? I'm like, it's going to get rented, no problem. And I'm like, we're going to list it at the highest possible price that they can be at. If we need to list it a little bit lower, that's okay, but it's going to get rented. And by next month, we're going to see this income at this, at this pace. Like it's going to be okay. So a lot of self-talk goes through that, a lot of like changing that mindset to like, yes, it's coming to you rather than like, is it coming to me?
Yeah, putting it in a question.
Yeah, am I questioning it or wondering where it is? Like, no, it's gonna be there. It's coming. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
make it happen. Um, doing what you need to do to be proactive to make it happen, but also just yeah, not having that negative and that kind of questioning mindset towards it because I think that has always helped me and my husband too is always like, I don't know how you do it, but you get it done. Like he's like, I don't know like what it is about you, but I'm like, I'm really big on that. Like I'm just really big on getting yourself just mentally in the right headspace when it comes to money because if you don't, it's just gonna drain you. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to completely affect your mood. It's going to affect your mental health. It's going to affect the how the week goes, how the month goes, and it can affect your productivity. Rather, if you have more of a healthy mindset with money, or more of a healthy relationship with money, uh, you're treating it more as like you're allowing it to, you're welcoming it, you're allowing it to
Mm-hmm.
come into your house and come into your space. And you're saying that you have those fortunes rather than questioning if you have those fortunes. It really, really makes a big difference. And at least it has in my experience.
Yeah, and that's like the whole point of manifestation. Like people think, oh yeah, just think about it. But it's like what you said. It's thinking about. Sorry, there's like noise outside. Hopefully nobody heard
It's
that.
good.
But yeah, it's manifestation. So it's being proactive with what you're doing, not just thinking about it. Because like there's like this book, The Secret. Like there's a lot of backlash because it's like okay, yeah, think about it. But
Yeah.
people don't know that that's like just one part of it. There's
Yeah.
like I forgot about the names, but it's like you really have to put an intention behind it, and you
Yes.
gotta be proactive about it. Like you can't just like wish it. So it's like, okay, what can I do today to do this, and that, and even like it will be like doing physical stuff, but also like your mindset. Like, okay, am I thinking something about money that it's influencing? Like how your husband was saying, like, or you were saying how he like stresses about like, oh, is it gonna sell or being able to rent it out? It's like okay, he in this example he would like have to like calm down and think
Uh-huh.
about and then redirect his thought and change it to like okay,
Yeah.
the house is gonna rent out by this time. I like and be like what's the word, adamant,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Just be confident and
confident that it's gonna come. Yeah,
come and that it's there or that it's already
it's
there.
already there. Yes, that's key actually.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because that's
The wording is everything.
yes, it really is. There's like a manifestation technique. I guess it's a technique or scripting where
Yeah.
you have to write down as if that event already happened. So I've been trying to do that, but I started like in the beginning of the year. But I've been
Yeah.
like going down. But I need to go back to it because there's like some things where I wrote like starting the podcast, like interviewing as a woman, like all of that and like
Yeah.
events. So yeah, definitely I recommend scripting. That's
Yeah.
gonna something I'm gonna be. Do you have any manifestation techniques that?
Oh my gosh. I have manifested my whole life. I kid you not. Um, and honestly, I gave up, not gave up. I like put away those like thoughts of like, oh, people think it's like woo woo or it's like not real. Like honestly, I give zero F's about any of that because I know what I have lived with my life, and it also kind of ties into I grew up, my family grew up very religious, very Catholic, very
Mm.
Latino Catholic. I never fully aligned with the religion
Yeah.
Catholic, but I did align with some of the things, and believing in a greater power, um and how it brought us together, and having that hope. And
Mm.
so I had struggled for the longest time. Come my mid, especially my mid, up to my mid 20s, I'm like, okay, what do I believe in? What do I not believe in? And I think that kind of um, helped me, like questioning that, kind of going through that kind of self work of like, okay, what do I really believe in? What am I putting my energy towards? What's my mindset like? Am I Catholic? Am I not Catholic?
Mm.
What is going on? So when I realized that, I'm like, okay, I'm definitely more religious than I'm sorry, I'm definitely more spiritual than I
Mm.
am religious. Is when I had this like big aha moment, like, oh my gosh, I am definitely more spiritual. Like, this is
Mm.
what I feel more aligned with. This is what speaks true to me. This is energetically, like, this is just what I feel in my soul and my heart. These types of practices and these types of um mindsets and beliefs, like this is what aligns more with me. So I made that shift, I would say more so in my mid 20s, I would say early mid 20s, of becoming, just practicing spirituality more. And then I think it was for my 25th birthday, I did a retreat, like a women's retreat for my
Mm.
birthday. And that was a really, really awesome retreat. And we focused on meditation, we focused on journaling, we did some mood boards. And it was like local, it was up in Portland. I'm in Eugene, so it's just 2 hours away.
Mm.
I spent the weekend with these women, and the food was all vegan. And it was so delicious. And for me, it was just like a very like eye-opening experience. We also had a little photo shoot, like one of the people that put it on, she's a photographer, so she did
Mm.
photo shoots for us, and like kind of just helping ourselves in our own skin. And basically, over the time that I evolved, and just opening myself up to my spirituality practices, I have found that I found different practices, or sorry, different like habits and different
Mm.
manifestations and different things that I just do on a day-to-day basis, or a month-to-month
Mm.
basis, and a week-to-week basis, that has helped me just feel more aligned. So, and also has helped me manifest what I have now. So one huge example was being a flight attendant, because I had been wanting to do it for so long. Like, it was, anyone that knew me knew what is my dream life, to be a flight attendant. So leading up to it, like the year prior to me getting my first interview, I had watched, I finally was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna do all this research, and I'm gonna figure it out. And so I would watch YouTube videos back to back
Mm.
of flight attendants that were either vlogging, or like how to become a flight attendant, how to do Delta interviews, how to do interviews for United, how to do interviews for American. I would follow as many flight attendants as I can possible, so I would have them basically constantly in my face, like just around me.
Mm.
Like, basically, are you building that persona as if I was a flight attendant? Because I would just be invested in watching and surrounding myself with all things flight attendant.
Mm.
And I think I had wrote in like a journal at one time too about like being a flight attendant. And so within that year, I did so much of that, like so much research and surrounding myself. And then a year later, I had got my first interview. And that was a really big deal, because it was really hard to get an interview, especially at that time. It's really hard to get, or to, yeah, to nail down like interview, because one, flight or airlines aren't were not always hiring. Like
Mm.
it was like kind of like a lottery system if they were hiring, and you're probably having hundreds and hundreds of people applying. And yeah, it was like very much like, oh my God, I had my first interview. And then I spent hours trying to prep for it. I went and got like a Fenty red lipstick for it. Like I made sure I got a blazer because it was all video too, like video
Mm.
interviews. And the first three interviews are like all video interviews. So I got like a blazer to like make sure I'm like nice, pretty,
Presentable.
yeah, like really presentable and blah blah blah. And I think in my first interview, I didn't do well. I was so nervous that I stuttered. I like
Mm.
didn't know the answer to the question. And the type of interview format they use, I'm already forgetting what it's called. It's like a specific format. But they like basically like it's not easy. It's a pretty intense interview process. Um, but then after that, I got my second like possible interview with a different airline. Uh,
Mm. Okay.
so then after that, I think I had three. So I interviewed with Delta, American, and then a regional one. The regional one is SkyWest, and the
Mm.
SkyWest was the one in person. So I was able to go in person, and by the SkyWest, it was the third time, so I felt much
Mm.
comfortable, and it was it was easier than the other ones, but I had again already practiced. Like they basically asked a lot of them asked the same questions,
Mm.
whether they were hard or not. They were just similar questions, so I knew. And there were a lot of like scenario based questions. So they're
Mm.
like, what would you do um if you know if a passenger was having a heart attack and um what would you do in that scenario? Like, would you go to your flight attendant? Would you call the captain? Like, and then you want to make sure
Mm.
you ask the right question and not the wrong question. So we're like, and at the time, like, I don't know what I would do because I'm not a flight attendant in my head. But basically, I fully feel like I manifested my job as a flight attendant because then I did it and then COVID. But then after that too, like the house we live in right now, I just spoke to my husband the year before we decided we're gonna get another house. That
Mm.
I'm like, okay, I know I want a house that has a pool. And I know I'm gonna have a house that has a pool one day. And he's like, ha ha ha, yeah, you're right, yeah, right. And I'm like, no, I know we're gonna have a house that has a pool one day. He goes, what kind of pool? I'm like, an in-ground pool. It's gonna be really cute, and it's gonna be kind of like this Spanish style backyard. Like, it's gonna be pretty. We're gonna set it up. He's like, maybe one day, honey, maybe sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And then fast forward to when we're looking for a house, and by no means were we looking a house with a pool. We were just looking for an investment home. We knew it wasn't
Mm.
like for our home. But then we saw this house, and this house had like some arch hallways. Like it had two living rooms, beautiful space. It was definitely uh, something that needed renovation. Like it wasn't
Mm.
like it was a 90s house. And but when I went inside of it, I learned with houses too, I need to see the big picture rather than like judge it by what it looks like and more so
Mhm.
kind of see the big picture of like the layout because I'm like, okay, a paint goes a long way, new floors go a long way,
Mm.
new light fixture goes a long way. So for me, it was just like the layout. And the location was perfect. It was 5 minutes from where we already were at, and we loved this part of town. And then we went in the backyard, and we're like, oh my gosh, it has a pool and it's in our price range. It's like a little bit of at a price range, but I'm like, it has a pool and it has a hot tub. I'm like, and it's rare for Eugene too to have those. Like, not rare, but like for like a general I mean, more so on the more expensive side, homes really
Mm.
need like it's not people don't really have pools here because one, it rains the majority of the time of the year, uh,
Mm.
and it's maintenance. But also we were on the hills, and I was like, oh my God, this is definitely. I'm like, honey, we need to get this house. Like, we're gonna get this house. And at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna get my heart set up, if it's not gonna. But I'm like, I think we're gonna get this house. Um, but yeah, I'm like, honey, I fully manifested that. Like, Well, I manifested all of
Yeah,
that.
and literally like how when you were giving these two examples, like the whole point of like to do manifestation is that you got to be really really clear on what you want. Like be as specific as possible, and that's what you did. You say I want this type of pool, blah 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 blah, and then the flight attendant I want this type of job, blah blah blah. So
Yeah,
you really got to be specific. And then the second is like immerse yourself. So you did your whole research on flight attendants, how to get a job, interviews, all of that, and the same thing with the house. So it's really and then being proactive too. I'm like, okay, I need to go. Obviously, I'm not a house is not gonna come to me, so I gotta go and do my
exactly.
research and all of that. So it's a lot of factors that go into manifestation. But at the end of the day, you really gotta align to like what you want to manifest. So that's really
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, that clarity, that having the specifics, and like you said, immersing yourself, I think that's a really, really big one. Because again, it doesn't just come from thin air. We're not talking about like, oh, we
Mm-hmm.
appear out of nowhere. There is some work to manifestation. Like it's a give and take thing. It's not just a take thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's definitely you want to put your efforts out there too. So
Yeah, that's so
um,
true.
and
We're almost in the time limit, or you could say
yeah.
almost towards the end. I can't. I'm like seeing the time. I was like, oh, okay. But before we end, I want to ask you the last question. So it's, what are your top three? If you have more, please share. But what are your top three accomplishments where Carolina from like maybe a few years ago wouldn't have believed that you achieved? So top
Yeah.
three, and if you have more, please share.
Yeah. It's so crazy to kind of think about one just over my different career paths over the last like decade and everything I've accomplished thus far. Because we came and I really try to, stay humble about this and remember, I'll never forget like, where we came from and immigrating from Peru and living in a house when I was 6 years old with all my family members, including my aunts and uncles. Like we lived in a house, in a 3 bedroom house with, I would say, probably like 15 people. And that's, and I mean, thankfully, all my family and I are so, so very close. But, it was definitely like those days were building us up to and setting that foundation to our work ethic and to
Mm-hmm.
and motivating us to like being able to get what we have today. So I think I feel like one of my biggest accomplishments, um, one is kind of just my inner work and the confidence that I have built over time. I feel like that I really need to acknowledge kind of and celebrate myself in that sense because like I said, not only was I just so shy, but um, I think my shyness just really stemmed from not knowing not knowing my identity, like not really being able to. I was trying to identify as, I was obviously I was Latina. I'm Latina. I was born in Peru, and I came here to the United States when I was 6 years old. But when I came to the United States and I joined second grade, I had been trying to adapt to a completely new lifestyle and trying to fit into into this new society and this new world and this new language. And that really was just such a big experience that I'll never ever forget because I remember my brothers and I, we would go into uh, different stores and we would hear people speak a language, but we didn't know what it was. So then, but we wanted to fit in. So we would speak
Mm-hmm.
our own language. And it was literally just like, it wasn't a language. It was just blabbing things and speaking gibberish. That's what we were speaking gibberish.
Gibberish.
But we were speaking gibberish because we thought we were fitting into other people speaking a different language. Um, and yeah, and it was just very much this experience of trying to figure out who I really am as a Latina immigrant, um, and then also adapting to culture and society here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I feel like that really took a toll on my confidence, and that really took a toll on me be able to express myself and being myself in front of people. And so I would always kind of be in the background and not want to be the center of attention. And, or I would be scared to answer questions even in class because am I going to say the right thing? So that really took a toll on myself. But now, having the confidence that I do now, it's honestly like, um, 10-year-old me would be so, so proud of me. Like, who are you? Like, oh my God, go hide behind the curtain. um, but I think that would be one of my biggest things. I definitely think my second accomplishment would be um, what my husband and I have built with um, from the hard work we have put in over the past decade. So my husband and I have actually been together for like 10 years. We are technically high school sweethearts, but
Oh.
he was in high school. I wasn't. I'm 2 years older than him.
Mm.
So we met since he was 16, I was 18.
Mm.
And we, so, I mean, we broke up a couple times, but because as you do when you grow up and he went to college and we were
Mm.
kids and we didn't know what we wanted. But then we rekindled about like 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. And then, he very much has like the work ethic of what my family has taught me. And we went from living in a, gosh, I think it was like 700 square foot apartment, like maybe actually like 650 square foot apartment. And we were paying like $700 a month for a 1 bedroom, like small, like we had, our kitchen was so small, our bedroom, and then we had our living room, and that's it. And we were so happy there. We were so happy to like have this little place that's our own. And we made it cute. And then prior to that, we had a different house that was like very much a 70s house, like
Mm.
red shag carpet, like big tub with like mirrors all around it. Like, and again, rent was so cheap, but it wasn't in the safest part of the neighborhood.
Mm.
But we did that. Were like, hey, we're gonna do this. Like, it's gonna be
Mm.
great, and we were so happy. And he did his entrepreneurship too. He was kind of did some entrepreneur stuff on before he got his current job at PacTech. And I was like cheering him on the sidelines, like, yeah, go, like, build that wood thing that you were doing. Like, I love it. Um, and yeah, I mean, that we went through a lot of highs and lows and had put in a lot of work into over the decade of our time together. And now to be in this home with our beautiful dog, and to like have be a little family of three, and be investors in real estate and wanting to do more. Like, we have the goals to want more houses and
Mm.
really build a life from that. And I think that's just another accomplishment um because it really comes down to like we could be in that 600 square foot apartment and be so happy and be so in love and just be so proud of ourselves, the same as we are living in this, in this beautiful home as well. So I think that we'll always keep with that, like that kind of attitude will always keep
Mm.
with us. um I don't know what a third accomplishment would be.
It could be personal or like in your business too.
Yeah, with my business, Um, I guess that would be kind of the business side of thing, or kind of like the creative side of things
Mm.
for me. That would be another big accomplishment because um, having started that venture, if it weren't for that venture, I would not have I would not have the flexibility and the lifestyle that I do now, because I love to work from home, and I'm able to kind of just um have more time for myself, have more time for my mental health, have more time for my family. And on top of that, I would not have started TikTok and started content creation on TikTok if it weren't from that venture. So it was definitely
Mm.
a domino effect to starting that venture business to where it is now. Um, And so now where I'm at, like now I have even bigger goals of like, okay, now I have my social media management business where I can take that, and then now I'm doing content creation and making that space now um more exclusive and sorry um and making that space just more available to people, you know, where I come from.
Mm.
Um and so I think that's probably another big accomplishment is just starting a new venture in the social media as an entrepreneurship, and then seeing where that kind of goes moving forward.
Yeah, because there's like it with like content creations, there's so much potential. There's like affiliate marketing, there's like coaching, and then
Yeah.
so many stuff that I'm also like trying to go into. But yeah, so I want to thank you, Carolina, for being here. Like this was such an awesome conversation. I love talking about money and manifestation. So
Yeah.
I was really glad we were able to talk about manifestation for a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much. Can you share your social media handles for those who wanna go check you out and the work that you do?
Yeah, yeah, I would love to. Yeah. Also, I meant to say inclusive, not exclusive.
Inclusive.
Because like, wait, no, we're not going down that road. I definitely would say
Inclusive.
more inclusive. Um, and making, yeah, the online space more inclusive. But you can find me at Carolina del Pilar. Actually, sorry, Carolina Hoar Perez, Hor Perez.
Mm,
It's just kind of all my general profiles on TikTok and my Instagram. And
mhm,
then my business is it's Carolina del Pilar. It's
mm.
Carolina del Pilar. Um, and that's also on TikTok and Instagram.
Oh, it's
Thank you so much.
yeah. I'll definitely leave your social media handles on the description.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you. And then for those who are listening, don't forget to give us a review and any podcast platform that you listen to. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share. All of that, it really supports the podcast. And again, Carolina, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrea. You've been amazing.